Stephen. I believe I know everybody that's on the call so far. If you don't know me, I'm Miriam Glaze, the co-founder of Athletes with Pauline, who's unable to join us today. And like I was saying, we do this call once a month with our coaches and other supporters that lead these reflection and coaching sessions. I'm going to pass it on to Steve. Please introduce yourself, give us some background, and then we'll jump into the session right in. Okay?
Awesome.
All right.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I'm assuming you gave me driving ability with sharing my screen, correct? Yep, I see it. Cool. Um, First of all, before I introduce myself, I just want to make sure I know there are a few people that are maybe on driving or maybe moving. Eventually, if you get to a safe place and you can sit down and just listen, definitely have a pen and paper for this because this is more of like an interactive session. We're just going to go through some exercises today. For those who are watching on a video, get a pen and paper, and just kind of follow along because this will definitely be interactive. This is not going to be just me talking. This will be an opportunity for you to kind of engage and create, which is part of the process here. So first, just want to introduce myself. I'm Steve Davis Jr. I'm originally from St. Louis, and I went to school at the University of Minnesota, played football there. Part of my story, my journey is in that transition. I thought I was making it to the NFL, and it didn't happen. And quickly, I realized like I didn't know who I was and what was next in my transition. But as I started to lean into connecting with other former athletes and understanding their story and their plight and knowing that, hey, I'm not the only one who has gone through a transition and struggling to figure out what's next. And really kind of opening up the eyes of being more open to engaging and communicating and working with people. I started to, figure out things and get more opportunities because of the relationships that I was building. But it also helped me kind of evolve as a person and being willing to take chances and take experiences and learn from a lot of the different things that I was just trying to explore and figure out who I was. All of that kind of culminated to now where I've launched a business called Strive Higher at the Sports, which is specifically focused on helping athletes to design fulfillment in their lives after they're done. I've learned through a lot of uh, design thinking concepts about how to approach life in a way that gives me the chance to go out and have a bias towards action, experience things, learn from those things, and take what I've learned to help me grow. And I want to do the same for athletes in their transition into life outside of sports. So Strive Higher at the Sports is really specifically helping in that regard. So today, what I really wanted to do in this, this huddle is give us an opportunity to go through one of the exercises that I will do, with my clients about helping them to use some of this design thinking framework in a way that helps them explore a little bit more who they are. And the concept of this one is called activate your ideate. So I'm going to share my screen. And I'm asking before we get started with this, I would love if you are able to work with me in this centering exercise that we're about to do, and kind of go through a little bit of getting our mindset prepared for the space and also for the opportunity to be creative. So if you're able, obviously if you're driving, don't worry, but if you're able, please close your eyes and come with me as we kind of take some deep breaths. Take a deep breath in, exhale out slowly. Another deep breath in, exhale out slowly. Now, with your eyes closed, I would love for you to focus on the furthest sound that you can hear. Focus on that sound and the details of that sound. Now switch that up and focus on the nearest sound that you can hear. All of your mind and focus on that sound that's closest to you. And if you haven't at this point, listen to your breath. Go ahead and start listening to your breath. Now, I would like you to take a moment in your mind in this space to visualize and remember a time when you were just a child. And in that playful nature, think of that environment that you're in as that child, experiencing happiness, experiencing fun. Be present in that emotion that you're feeling as that younger version of yourself. Feel the positive vibes, the energy. Now, when you're able, please open up your eyes and come back to the space. All right. Well, thank you for going through that. That exercise is something to kind of get you centered, but it's actually teeing up to what we will be kind of discussing in this session, and really give you an opportunity to activate some of that playful nature again. Um, as I mentioned before, a lot of what I teach and a lot of what I focus on in my coaching practice is around the designing your life framework. Um, for some reason, I cannot see people. So give me 1 second. Okay, now I can. All right. Um, so how many of you have heard of designing your life or maybe experienced designing your life? See hands, couple hands. Okay, cool. So essentially designing your life is a framework about, having that bias towards action, but really thinking about your life as a designer would, and creating the product, creating the problems, and coming up with the solutions for you to go out and experience, test, and then look at the data and figure out from that data, what are you going to do? What are some of the decisions that you can make based upon being more informed about your life? And in the designing your life framework, when it comes to your life, it's really about 6 phases. It starts with empathize, where you're looking at the situation of where you currently are. You come to a reasoning with where you are. You're accepting where you are and understanding, how you got there. And then you go into defining what is the problem that you want to solve because of where you are. What is the things that you want to create, based upon the situations that you're in right now. And then from there, you get to ideate. You get to think about all the different solutions that you could create from that defined problem. But with ideation, there is the next step, which is creating the prototypes and the opportunities for you to take those ideas into concepts, into things that you can go out and practice. And that is that next step, which is testing. Testing is really you going out, taking all of what you created in your mind, the prototype that you've developed, and going out and seeing how it works in real life. And once you do that, you get to take stock on, what's happened in your life, and take inventory of what's happened in your life, and be able to accept the results. You see what happened, if it was good or bad, you're able to take that information and then make more informed decisions about what you want to do moving forward. Part of the framework of this is that it's a virtuous cycle. So you get to do this over and over again. It helps you to evolve, it helps you to grow, which is part of the strive higher mindset and mentality. And to be quite simple with it, it's really about being curious, it's about talking to people, it's about trying things, and then it's about telling your story. So when I go and talk to athletes, I really kind of start with this framework to kind of give them an understanding of how they can use this in their life to seek evolution versus seeking the next thing and only focusing on the next thing. You can always learn from your circumstances and your situations, and this framework really helps. Well, today we're going to focus on one aspect of this, and that is the ideate portion of this. We're going to get an opportunity to kind of turn on our brains, like I mentioned before, go back into that playful nature and start to concept some different things about our lives that we want to explore in the future. Now, when I talk about ideation, the definition of it is a creative process. It really helps you generate and develop and communicate new ideas. Now, with ideation, it's really about going wide versus thinking practical and thinking narrow on like what are the small things that I can do? What are the realistic things that I can do? No, it's really about being a dreamer and opening up your perspective, opening up your mind to think about things outside of the box. Think about solutions that people haven't thought about yet and really give you that creative energy once again to turn your brain on to thinking about possible solutions in many different ways. And it doesn't have to be put into a box. It doesn't have to be put into a confined area. It gives you opportunity to express yourself in a different way by turning on the framework of your mind and bringing out once again that dreamer side. Um, why it matters is that I believe we are all meant to be creative. We're all put on this earth not to just do things, as we talk about. We're not just athletes. We're not just people who can go out and do positive things on the field. Our mind is our most powerful thing that we have. And we're meant to be creative. You have something in you that you're meant to create. And a lot of that comes from you coming up with the ideas first and generating a lot of the power and the concept of what's next. What are the things that you want to solve? What are the things that you feel like are meant for you to be a part of? What is the purpose that comes from all of the things that you were meant to be here on earth for? It's really tapping into your creative side. And I'm not naive to think that everybody can tap into this very, quickly and just so simple and seamlessly because, we have as adults not use our creative minds as much, unless you're in environments where you are in designing and you're thinking, you're creating all the time. More than likely, you're doing a strategic plan once every 2 years, 3 years, and that's when your mind is going. But for the most part, you're in execution mode. You're moving forward. You've got a lot of things and priorities that are going on in your life, and you're just trying to continue to stay forward and move forward, but you're not pausing, and there's not many times where you have the opportunity to really think outside the box and brainstorm. Well, ideation really helps you do that. It helps you remove those mental blocks and those inner critics that you have to think about, well, I can't think about this idea won't work, or this is too big. It really kind of once again goes wide and gives you the opportunity to think about, if there was no rules, there's no barriers, no regulations, what are the things that I can come up with? What are the things that I can create? What's missing? Gives you the chance to, activate a lot of that innovation that you already have. And it really helps to activate that emotional preflexal mindset, which is like the first thing that comes to your mind sometimes when you're in a situation and somebody says something or idea that comes up and you're like, oh, I think it's something, but then you go back and you're like, oh no, that's not a good idea. Let me think again. But it activates that to give you more and more fresh ideas, because once it hits you right in front of your head, like those are some of the brightest ideas that you've already come up with. And ideation really helps you to tap into that more. So I would love, just for the standpoint of us getting started with this exercise, to once again circle back on that the centering exercise of us going back to being a child. And in that moment, think back to when you were between 5 and 10 years old, and you had all these dreams and aspirations and all these different playful nature of yourself. Even if this is before you were playing sports or during sports, you're during that time just had a lot of thoughts and ideas. I remember as myself as a kid, I used to think about being out an astronaut, being in space and going to different planets, and being a person that can like fly in the air and all these different things. outside of just playing sports. I would love to continue to tap into that nature, that playful nature that we all have, and give you an opportunity, if you're willing, to kind of share, what were some of the dreams and ideas that you had when you were, in this age range, 5 to 10, and just kind of open it up to the space to see who wants to share that.
I don't
And
know if
share
anything
whatever you feel is
specific comes to
comfortable.
mind. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just reflecting on a lot of creative play. Like I have vivid memories of playing with neighbors in the basement. And of course, some pictures of me apparently dressing up in a wedding dress, marrying my friend. So like those kind of creative plays is what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, all the fun things. You're getting together with friends and, the love in the environment, the dream of getting married one day, like those type of things that, you know, as you get older, if you're not there already, you're not thinking about it as much because once again, we're in execution mode. But thank you for sharing. Anybody else have any examples they want to share?
I just remember being like just thinking everything was possible, right? So it would be like when I was younger, I mean, I would think about flying, not an airplane, but just like actually flying, which obviously is impossible. But I never, like, nothing seemed like there was an obstacle that could get in my way of doing whatever. Or then another day, I dreamt of being a doctor because I liked, healing my stuffed animals when they, tore, whatever it was. But it was just always this stream of endless possibilities and ideas. And it makes me really happy to actually think about that. So thank you for reminding me to get back in touch with that.
Yeah. Back to the time where there were no limits, right? Like we just thought and came up with all these dreams. Like I can be this, or tomorrow I can be this. Like I'm not going to limit myself anymore. Thinking about that as a kid, you had so many possibilities. We didn't know if we can fly. I used to think I could fly too. Like that's one of my dreams still. And I'm trying to tap into that childful nature of like, one day I'm gonna figure this out, get a jetpack or something. I'm gonna fly. But anybody else have any experiences they want to share?
I just feel like I've really resonated with what everyone has said around like feelings of no fear. Like I just remember taking some brutal hits. Like I just was pretty wild on the playground and was just like going all the time, doing all these crazy things and was never faced by like various injuries that happened and was just like, okay, it's fine. Like it's just a broken bone. I'll heal. And there was just such a sense of like no fear that I really resonate with.
Wow, love that. Love that. No fear. We're waiting to take on whatever comes next. Even if you face an obstacle or break something, you're like, whatever, I'm gonna still go after it. Like that. Think about that in today's world. Like we are so fearful, especially after transition of I don't want to fail. I don't want to mess up. But as a kid, we were like, whatever, I'm gonna fall. I'm gonna go outside and still go on that playground. And even if I bust my head the other day, like that's just who I am.
I think
Anybody else have?
for
Well,
me, it makes me think of this creativity around building things and unlimited ideas of what you can build and what you can build it with, and finding always things to create, buildings, forts, like whatever it is, inside the house, outside of the house, there was always something to make or create. I feel like of that contact with your hands and like just touching and doing things like that. I thought that's also what I relate to when I think about childhood creativity.
yeah, that's great. It's like the Lego blocks. You're creating your castle and creating your empire, your buildings, and whatever the structures that you want in the future. Let's take one more if anybody's willing to share. Okay. Well, I definitely appreciate you all for sharing some of that information. I believe sharing is caring. Despite what your experience is, if you open up, it kind of opens up everybody else and gives them encouragement. So I encourage you to continue to do that throughout the session, and let us continue to like learn from each other's own experiences and ideas, and hopefully inspires you to kind of do more. So with that, I'm going to continue with the exercise, and we're going to jump right into the assignment here. So part of what we do with Strive Higher at the Sports is get more interactive. And I love to do interactivity because it helps you to not only just think about these things, but actually put them into practice and give you something to take away in the exercise. And today we're gonna, kind of keep this creative mindset going, thinking about that young, playful nature. A lot of what you talked about and what was shared were things that brought you excitement, that brought you fun, that took away the fear, and essentially brought you joy. Joy is a concept and is a motion that I really love to focus on and help athletes to find, because when we're in our sport, we are experiencing joy. We feel like we're doing what we're meant to do. It is not something that we have to think hard about. We love to come and show up for our competition and have fun and be with our teammates and be in that environment. And then when it's taken away from us, it's hard to sometimes find that joy again, because we're so stuck into, well, that was the one thing that gave me life, that gave me energy, that gave me all this purpose. But I would like to say there is more to us, because we've already shared some things earlier as a child. Like, we had all these different aspirations and ideas of things that would make us happy. It's still in us. And there's still opportunities for us to explore joy in a way that helps us activate that in our lives after sports. So to put it into perspective, joy is defined as the great feeling of pleasure and happiness. It's the thing that delights you, and it's the thing that helps light up your heart and your soul. And it runs really deep through you and overflows you. However, you have to choose joy. It is not like happiness. Happiness comes by circumstance, by situation. You get a promotion, you win the award, you win the game, you get happy. Joy is you showing up knowing, no matter the circumstance, as Marauder, I can't say pronounce your name, but you talked about going into the playground and having no fear. Like, you are going in like, hey, no matter what happens, I'm gonna have fun, because this is who I want to be. This is how I want to show up. Joy is that environment. It is that emotion. It is that embodiment of going out and seeking and being in that space, knowing that there's nothing that's going to really stop you. So today we're going to choose to ideate about joy and things that bring us joy through this exercise called a mind map. Now, how many of you have done mind maps? You can raise your hand. Oh, got a bunch of rookies here. Okay, cool. Well, I love mind maps. It is one of the best tools I believe that is out there to really, activate a lot of the creative juices that are inside of your brain. It's really an exercise that helps you design like an idea flow chart. If you're working in flow charts in different, software systems that kind of keep track of your project management and all these different things, you can see visually how the project is supposed to happen. Well, from a mind map standpoint, it's like you come up with a central theme and idea, and you are able to brainstorm a cloud of other ideas branching off from that central idea that helps you gain a little bit more knowledge, invigorate a little bit more ideas, be more creative, and really kind of expand and go wide on the concept of that central theme. As I mentioned before, I feel like it's one of the best ways to tap into your creativity. And it's really about visual ideation, because part of ideation, in my opinion, is you can keep a lot of it in your brain, but until you put it down on paper, you put it down on a place where you can visually see it, you're not going to always remember that and also take action on that. So the mind map helps you to take that central theme and idea, expand upon it, but really visually put it down in a way so that you can look at this and see how your mind is flowing, but also get inspiration on some of the themes and ideas that have come from that. So we're going to use this, and this will hopefully invigorate some life in you. And really, the thing about mind mapping too is that it helps you to think more clear, think better. If you're able to do this, and you can do this at any point in time, you just got to set aside the time to do so. It really kind of activates, as I mentioned, that pre-reflecto mindset and helps you to think more clear. You know, if you're always feeling like you're stuck in the rut and your brain is tired, it's stressful days, and you can't think clearly, you know, tapping into that creative side of your mind really activates a lot of positive neurons for you and gives you an opportunity to think more stronger and to think more clear in the future. So as an example, here's a mind map that was created. It started with the concept of being outdoors. And with the mind map, like I mentioned, you start with a central idea, and from that idea, you then go out and branch different ideas that come from that central idea. So in this example, being outdoors, you can see that nature, travel, hiking, and surfing were the four, and camping were the 4 or 5 branches that were the main themes that were built off of this. Usually that first branch is very vague. It just kind of gives you the first thought of concept and ideas that you can, you know, attach to that central theme. But then once you go a little bit deeper, you see on the second layer, it kind of talks into more specifics of each one of those categories. So if you see travel, you're just like, okay, where travel? What about travel? You talk about Hawaii, Europe, backpacking. You see hiking, is it mountains, is it boots? With camping, you're talking about tents and cooking. Surfing, you have exercise, you're talking about waves and nature's green and trees, and so on and so forth. You go to the next level of this and you just continue to piggyback off the theme and idea that was generated from there and get more and more specific. And as you do that, you start to branch out with a lot of different ideas just from that central thought. And this exercise really gets you to think wide and take away a lot of the confines and structures. So we're gonna dive into this and create a mind map. And you see these circles on the outside. We're gonna get to that in a second. Don't pay too much attention to that. I'll explain a little bit further about what that means. But to get us started, if you're all able, I'll definitely ask you to bring out your pen and paper at this moment. Um, and we're going to jump into mind mapping with the concept of joy outside of sports. So we talked a little bit about this as a child and some of the things that and the concepts that made us happy, you know, just being that playful nature of who we are at the core. Well, let's take that a step further now that we're in our adult lives, now that we're past our sport, and start to think about some of those things and concepts of joy and what they mean to us now and how we want to activate that. So the first step that I would like for you to do is obviously write the word joy in the middle of your paper and circle that. And then from that standpoint, what we're going to do is branch off and create 4 to 5 different themes or ideas that you want from your own perspective that bring you joy outside of sports. And it can, for this first branch, it can just be very vague and open, but just kind of think about the things that speaks specifically to you. And we're going to start with that. And then after that, we'll branch off into some others. And I'm going to give you a couple minutes for this. I'm going to test out this Zoom feature. Where'd it go? I'll just give you a few minutes while I find the app that I was looking for.
Steve, are we just doing those 4 to 5 or are we like going ham?
Just 4 to 5 for right now.
Okay.
It's hard not to keep going. My brain's on a roll.
That's good. It looks like, let me give you like another minute, maybe less than that, just to make sure everybody else is on the same pace. All right. Now let's move into the next portion. Now this second branch, this is what I would like for you to do is from those 4 to 5 that you've created, create a second branch, and I want you to branch off with at least 3 different concepts and ideas that are generated or inspired from that idea. You could go more if you want, but just at least 3 of those as you continue to build out the mind map. And normally when I do this, I'm going to try this too. I like to have ambient music because it activates more in the brain as well. So I'm going to play some music softly. There we go. I found it. I'm gonna give you guys like a couple minutes, and I found this timer that works in Zoom to kind of let you know how many seconds are left. Got a minute left. Wrapping up with that one. I'll just keep the music going because we're gonna still need it. All right, so the next one, you get one last time to create another branch, a third branch. And this time I want you to be a little bit more specific with the theme or idea that's inspired from one of the branches. So 2 to 3 from each of the extended branches from the last part, and get a little bit more specific, and I'll give you a little bit more time for this, just so you can reach all the different branches that you have. Got about a minute left. About 10 seconds. All right, all right. Let's bring it back because now it's share time. So, what I would love for some of you to maybe share, just a little bit of some of the things that you put out through your branches, as you talked about your joy. Maybe share as much as you want to share as far as like what you've written down, to kind of give everybody a chance to go through it. So, anybody want to jump in?
Let's start. I kind of what I find interesting now that I've gotten the full ring is I kind of went in two different directions. One direction was very internal focused, so I started with quiet reflection. Is that cheating to use two words? I was hoping I could kind of get away with it. So like kind of internalized like all the stuff that I think about. So like peace, journaling, those kind of things that are all internal. And then on kind of the bottom half, I was focused more externally. So I was thinking about laughing, socializing, playing with my kids. So I find that interesting that it was very could be seen as very polarized, but that's how it started, all with one thing in common, being joy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so many things that can branch off from just one word. And as you start to write it down, you get to see how a lot of these experiences all really kind of play a way in a way that's kind of connected to that, you know. You're talking about internalizing and also externalizing with your family and your kids. It's like these are things that you go through every day. You just kind of mentioned that could be a part of, what brings you joy. Yeah, thank you for sharing. Anybody else want to share some of their mind map?
I can share. I think what was interesting about this is the first time I've done this activity, and I think it's interesting how it also really aligns with my values, without me thinking about that until kind of now looking back on it. But then like how things kind of connect, like with friends, family, socializing, um, that type of thing. There's a lot of connections there, and also just like it was hard. I think I just part of my joy is like still finding fulfillment in physical activity. And so even though it's not related to my sport that I played, that I retired from, um, that it's still athleticism and pushing myself in different ways and in different goals is still what brings me joy. So then there's like a whole branch off of that. But yeah, I think it really connects to our values as well, which I thought was cool.
Yeah. With this being your first time doing it, how did you feel? How difficult or easy, or how did the idea start to come for you?
I enjoyed it. I feel like it came easily. I think because I am kind of the type of person that thinks about um all of these things and visualizes things I want for like for the next 3 years, the next 5 years, the next 10 years. So I've thought about these things in different ways, but I liked this activity because it gave more freedom and more, like you said, like more creative flow with it instead of like, okay, let's like think about where do you want to be in 3 years and like backtrack from that using like SMART goals. Like it's a different approach to kind of visualizing or maybe just getting to a place where you know what you want. So I feel like this could be a good first step actually if people are feeling really stuck with not knowing where they want to be in 3 years or in 5 years, like what life looks like to them. I feel like this is a really good first step because it kind of gets you out of that space of like, oh my gosh, I have to be at this certain place in 3 to 5 years. It's like, no, like first let's focus on like what even brings you joy in the first place or what, you know, what would, I guess, like make your life more fulfilled without
Mhm.
when you're not thinking about sports anymore. If you're like really feeling stuck of not knowing what your life could look like without it.
Yes, exactly. That is the whole reason for doing the ideation phase is you've already defined the problem, but now you got to create all the potential foundational ideas first before you go out and just try to figure out what's next. And a lot of this is hopefully inspiring some of the things that are already inside of us and getting it out and getting us a chance to see it and getting us a chance to think like, oh, I actually do have some ideas here that I haven't explored yet. And I'm not gonna lie to you, for a lot of athletes, even when I do this exercise, I do tend to trend towards more of like the physical activity stuff because that's just who I am. I've been doing that my whole life. So doing something that allows me to work out, like I might not play football, but I still want to play basketball, like something in that athletic realm is probably still going to be there. And it doesn't have to not be there. It's just more so about you're not defining yourself as that's the only thing that's going to bring me joy. You see this mind map now, you're like, whoa, look at all this stuff that actually makes me happy and actually helps me activate a little bit more of my joy. And I don't have to choose this, athletic stuff the whole time anymore. I can choose other things. Anybody
I
else
can
want
go.
to go ahead?
Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry. Uh, Also, I realized my name in the thing was
It's
all one
Mira.
word.
Got it.
That's not my full first name. I was like, well, that is no, I would have equally been super confused. Yeah, Mira, exactly. Um, Anyways, so I also really resonate with what you just said again, in terms of like, I so I'm 5 years out of playing tennis in college and have definitely like veered more towards the physical, mental and physical challenging pursuits, and I found a lot of joy in that. And so it took me a while, I'll be honest, like 2/3 of this exercise to get out of the framework of like, what am I already doing? And like, how can I just like take a pause? Um, so thank you for the music. That was quite helpful. Honestly. Um, and I feel like what I kind of veered more towards was like community development stuff, like really finding joy in different types of community around like food and yoga and just random stuff and venture capital. So that was really interesting because I feel like I kind of know that, but because I identify a lot as an introvert, I don't always realize just how much like joy I find in community building in certain respects.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's great. That's great. Information that you just kind of learn about yourself in regards to how it kind of makes you get in that fulfillment area, even if you are introverted. And a lot of this exercise, like I said, not everybody is very creative and can just jump into this exercise like, oh man, I got 20 million ideas. But part of it is inspiring your brain to think about all the things that mean something to you as you're writing
Totally.
down joy and writing down all these concepts. And then you get to see, no matter how expansive or how simple it is, all these different options that you have to make choices with.
No, totally. Yeah.
Yeah. So we got about 10 minutes, and what I'm going to do is kind of speed through this other part because it's not enough time. I thought it would be, but it's not. But we're gonna make it work. So the next portion of this is somewhat difficult, but also it taps in even further into your creative side. It's basically, you saw that example where there were some circles on the mind map. The next portion of the mind map exercise is called the mashup. And it's really an opportunity for you to look at your mind map and look at the outside circle of your mind map and find three things that pop out to you, three things that resonate for you, and circle those three things. It can be three unique things, it could be three of the same things, but three things that has come out of the branches at the end of the branches, out the outside portion of the branches, and circle those things. Give you a second to do that. Then I'll explain what the story portion is. And when I say think of the things that pop out to you, once again, that pre-reflecto response, you know, the things that are like, ooh, it came to me first. Like I see it and I feel it. Don't think too hard, don't think too long. Use what your mind is already telling you. It's like it's speaking to you and say, hey, that's it right there. That's the thing that you need to focus on. Circle those things. Then is the fun part of this. Part of this exercise that we do next is we take those three things and then we mash them up and we create a story about them. And it's a fun way for you to like take a concept, get outside, think far and wide. Don't worry about practical concerns or the realistic confine of resources and anything in the real world. You get to create a story. You get to write a book and talk about these three things and how they bring you joy. As you write the story and you talk about the story, you get to bring out the concept of how these three things relate and how it can create something unique for you. As an example, because we're short on time, I'm going to show you my mind map that I did a while back that also has the story element. So, I don't know if you can see all this. Probably not. But I will fix it because I'm good with technology. At least I think I am. Sorry, 1 second. Let me turn this background off. Here we go.
Steve, is it ironic that my joy word is no tech?
Yeah. So this is a mind map I made a long time ago around the word flow. And flow, for those who don't know, is high engagement, high energy. And with this, it's very similar to joy. So I did a lot of different things. The basic confine from it is that out of the outside circle, I end up circling branding, boxing workout, and astronomy. And very baffling, all these different things, right? So I'm like, how can I create a story out of this? What I did is I brought it all together in a way that I created a workout facility where people can come and box in a zero gravity type of environment. And I created a brand called Zero Gravity Boxing and put it into a concept that I can market, put it out into the real world, really get people gravitating towards something that will help them lose weight without having to really sweat and strain their body as much and have fun and feel like they're flying. Out of this world story. But one day I might create this. So I'm just tell you now. Don't try to steal my idea. But the mind map helped me to come up with this, and I hadn't thought about this at all until I did this mind map, and I put this story together. I'm like, oh my God, like I'm actually kind of creative. I can do this. This is not out there right now, and I can go out there and create something that speaks to who I am, and it's fun, and it brings me flow. So when you're talking about creating a story and taking these concepts of those three things and mashing them together, don't limit yourself. Come up with a story that makes sense for you, be creative, tap into your inner child, be a dreamer, and come up with something that is way out there. Because I guarantee you, there is some pieces in that story that is actually doable. You can go out and try. Because the next portion, since we're coming close to an end on this, the next portion of the what's the story element is a bonus piece that I want to leave you with. And it's basically as you circle those three things, write your story. It doesn't have to be extensive, but just come up with your story, what that story is. After you write your story, what you can do in that next phase of ideation is prototyping, is that bias towards action. Pull out the items that give you an opportunity to go out and test. For me, it's like, all right, I can go out and see what gyms are out there that have this concept. Like, let me research to see what zero gravity type of experiences are in the real world and how can you create that? And going and talking to some people. And then once I talk to people, get that data and then take that data and kind of figure out what my next steps are. So basically taking the piece of your mind map and your story and going out and finding the elements that give you an opportunity to try it and go learn a little bit more about it. Either talking to somebody, go out and experience it, researching, get something. And then after you do that, write your reflection like, oh, this is actually something that I can take steps towards. Like, how do I feel that I've actually did something that came out of this mind map and I had this bias towards this action? And then it's like the next step would be, how can I do this more consistently? What can I do to open up in my life to get me to follow this? Because this is something that's speaking to me. My brain has created this. How can I activate this more fluently in my life? And what steps can I take to do that? So that's the exercise. I know we have about 3 minutes left, so I just want to open up now just to you all's thoughts and feedback on just that concept and any other questions you may have about the mashup portion of the mind map.
I love your example. I think that's awesome because I was sitting thinking like how with my words like how am I going to create a story and what does this mean? And then I was like I didn't do it right. Like there must be something. And then you shared your experience and I was like okay, I didn't mess it up too bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's really neat. And I can also see how if you were to come back to this exercise, like if I came back to it tomorrow, I would probably have even more clarity and different things to add. So I love how it just builds on itself.
Yeah, I try to do this like every 3 or 6 months with just thoughts and ideas. Like I got a bunch of different mind maps I'm creating just because like it just activates something for me to just think outside of the box and not limit myself. Because in work, you're so busy and then it's like I can't think too much. I gotta just focus on what I have right in front of me. But quite often you don't get time and space like this. So this is what this whole exercise was: give you a break to turn on that ideation portion of your brain, but also give you some concepts that you can take with you. You can do this at any point in your own life, and you use this as an exercise to help you turn on your brain and be creative and find things that really speak to you in a way that your brain is telling you, but you haven't had a chance to listen.
I think one of the things we don't realize as athletes is that we are creators. We are artists. Nobody really tell you that along the journey that, hey, you are really an artist. You have creativity. So you have to lock in on that, hone in on that and carry that along your journey. But as your athletic journey wanes down, you have to stick with the creative because we're all creators. Everything around us is based off an idea and creation, which drives feeling. So if you're able to hang on to that after your athletic journey and you put that to your normal lives, you start to create things that bring you joy and happiness, love and peace, and that transforms you from an athlete to you creating something that just takes your next career to another level. But I think athletes, we don't think about being artists and creators, but I think that should be emphasized a lot more because it'll tap into another level of energy that will bring the best out of them.
Yes, most definitely. And most of the time when we're in our sport, like we are told where to be and we're given game plans that we're told to execute, right? So we don't really get a chance to show our creativity. And sometimes we may feel like that part of us is not with us anymore. So this is really a foundational exercise that re-energizes that portion of your mind and say like, yeah, you are creative. You have ideas. You have a lot of things in you, and let's turn that back on so you can start to figure out what's next in a way that's positive. Hey, Kat.
Well, oh, sorry, go ahead. Go for it. Raised hand. Oh.
No, I can finish. I was just being diplomatic with my hand. So I was a little worried because I didn't see anything like interesting coming up, like when I was doing this exercise. I was like, oh, I'm kind of like a boring person or whatever, have some problems. Well, because like you kind of wonder, oh, when did I experience joy? Well, sport, definitely. But then, what else did I do that was joyful? Like it just I nothing was really coming easily. So I can't say that I can come up with like some great story. Like actually, in fact, like I kind of recreated something that's already happening now. So instead of like looking forward, I just sort of redrew what I'm sort of kind of trying to work on now already. Kind of back, like I just back engineered the same idea, in a way. But I had a quick question about this graphic you showed at the beginning, where you have the empathize. I was just wondering, could you give an example, even based on your example with the, a boxing gym, how would you go through that part of iteration? Like, where's the empathize kind of fitted into re-examining your sort of idea there?
My idea? Yeah, great question. So in that standpoint, first I would have to accept like what the reality is in the situation of how many gyms is this concept already out there, what is the financials, all the stuff that is true. I have to accept that. Then from there, the empathize portion is now that I have that information and I understand where that information came from, it's really taking empathy on understanding what my next steps need to be and what are the obstacles that could potentially be in the way so that I can come up with the concepts of defining the problem. So I'm empathizing with the information that I have gotten to know, okay, here's the reality of it. How do I feel about it? What do I want to do about it? And what are the problems that I want to solve? And then I get into that define phase of like, all right, here's the things I'm going to create out of this, and then ideate. And it repeats itself because once you get into that portion and you experience something like I go and I start the gym and I'm not making money. So I'm like, okay, this is not making money. Maybe something else I need to ideate here. What's the problem? Why is it not making money? Come up with a different concept. Let me talk to some people, understand how they're building gyms. Now that I have this information and I've tested this out, let me try it in my gym and see if it works. Okay, if it's working, okay, I can accept that this portion is working and I can empathize with any other problems that are coming up. So it's really a cycle. It kind of repeats itself and gives you an opportunity to look at the problems, look at the things and circumstances in your life, and um, approach them in a way that seeks that evolution and that growth, no matter what the circumstance shows itself to be.
No, this is great. I never thought of it as a tool to kind of create or recreate the relationship with yourself and your thoughts. That can sometimes like bring you down if you're like you hit the obstacle in your head. Oh well, it was a stupid idea, or you went online. It's like, oh, it's already out there. And then like so empathize actually is the key part in this because it can be like, oh, it's easy to give up on something that you just kind of like, oh, it was joyful to think about it, but then it's like kind of dead at the end. So
Yeah, it's
I
like when we
appreciate that.
got done with our sport, we accept that our sport is ending, but we're still sad about it. We're still happy. I mean, pissed off and maybe like depressed about it. we got to empathize with those feelings and know that, that is a reality. But then it's like, what do we want to do about it? What are the problems I want to solve? Like, what's next? But before you can get to what the problem is, you got to understand what it is and empathize with it, and sit in that. So
That's great. Oh, actually, I pulled randomly artist card out of my deck. It just happened
nice.
now.
So you're artist.
like
You creative.
I have an archetype deck that I kind of like pull for different meaning, but I'm not like superstitious, but it's kind of a fun thing to do. So it just happened. So it was fun. It was
Love
funny and kind of meaningful. But
Yeah,
thank
yeah.
you very much.
No problem. Well, Miriam, I know we're 5 minutes over, but hopefully that was a good time for folks and learned a lot. And if you got any more questions about any of this stuff, feel free to reach out. I can go a little bit deeper on a lot of this stuff too. So
Steve, really, thank you. That was really good interaction and a great exercise to do all together. And I have to tell you, the touch with the music was especially good. At least for me, we haven't really done that in a session, and that was really nice. So appreciate your time and the presentation. Thanks everybody for showing up. We did record the session. If you ever want to get back to it, you can do that. We'll post it on Mighty Network, so you'll have access to it as well. Again, if you want to reach out to Steve, we'll share that on Mighty Network as the contact with the recording of his session, and feel free to reach out directly if you have any question or anything. Next month, we're going to have Dan Zimmett, who will be joining us to present the result of the athlete transition study, which is a study that he has done with other sports psychologists for quite a few years. They have interviewed nearly 500 athletes from various sports and backgrounds, and I've compiled a lot of information related to athletic retirement and the transition from sport. And so there's been a few articles published about the study, but it will be coming to talk about it and present and answer any questions you may have. So that will be a really interesting session as well. And that will be the first Friday of October. So feel free to join us then. Steve, thanks again, and everybody else too. Thanks for joining us, and have a lovely weekend. Okay. All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.